So I wasn't aware of it at the time, but if I had been, I would have achieved success so much faster and I really would have saved myself years of trial and error and multiple failures. And so we all want success, right? Like I want success, you want success. We all want to be successful and make as much money as we possibly can, and we want to be enjoying life along the way, you know? And the problem is there's something that is going to prevent you from actually achieving this if you don't become aware of it. And it's a trap that I fell into multiple times, and it's kind of a paradox because this idea is that if you actually prioritize money, okay, and you prioritize chasing money over everything else, it's actually a loss in the long run. And there's a lot of books and a lot of people I've been seeing and have read before saying how you should actually put the money ahead of everything else and chase the money first instead of trying to find something you enjoy doing. Don't worry about that. Instead, just chase the money and use that as sort of your North Star. And I think that this idea is really bullshit because every time I've ever tried this, it never works. It honestly never works. And I think that if you are going to go down this path, it's a very dangerous path to go down to, especially if you achieve success doing it this way. I think it's actually going to be a very negative thing, and it's something that you're going to regret. So in another video, I told you about how I started an Amazon business, which essentially just means selling physical products through the Amazon website and through the Amazon channel. And the thing is I failed that because I quit on that business, right? I quit on that business. And the main reason I quit was because it was getting difficult. Things weren't working the way I thought they would. Okay. And the thing I realized about it was I was selling a thing that I didn't care about to a group of people in a market that I didn't care about. And I wasn't interested in it at all. The main reason I went into doing that was because I was coming out of a point of sort of desperation, trying to find a way to make money online. And instead of thinking and following what I was actually really interested in, I was just following the money. Another example is something you probably didn't know was that at one point I was actually into real estate and I was doing that as well. And I was making some money doing it. I was actually making some money. I was making sales, but again, I went into that chasing the money. And so when things got more and more difficult and I actually needed to perform at a higher level and put more time into it and acquire more skills, I actually gave up because of the fact that I wasn't really interested in it. I wasn't curious about the industry. I didn't have a real interest in it beyond just making money. And I also did the same thing when I went to college, when I was trying to figure out what to do in college and I picked a major. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so instead of taking time to really understand myself and learn about myself, what I did was I went through, you know how they've got the whole list of different subjects you can take, and they've got the well, at least if you're in the US, they've got a Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a website that shows you how much each profession makes. And so I would go onto that website and I'd be looking around and be like, huh, all right, what can I do that makes me like six figures? And so I went into a field of study and I started to study, I think it was like computer, yeah, it was like computer, like technical stuff, like programming, computer, IT. And I went after that and I was chasing the money. I wasn't chasing the actual process of learning about computer programming and learning about IT. I didn't really enjoy that process intrinsically by itself. Like if there was no money involved, I wouldn't really be interested in that. And so I tell you this story because pretty much all the failures that I had, if you look at the common denominator, it was because every single thing I was going into, I was really chasing the money, the end goal, the outcome, instead of something that I intrinsically enjoy doing, just, besides the fact of earning an income. So really, man, the first thing you need to do is define success for yourself. So we have to think about, you know, what is success? What does success really mean? Does it mean that you have a shit ton of money and you're super rich, but you're kind of miserable with it? Like, do you want to end up being a miserable person, but be very wealthy? Then on the other end of the spectrum, there's I really enjoy what I do every day, and I actually really have a strong interest for this thing, but I'm completely broke. I think both of us would agree that neither of those paths are really optimal, and it's probably more somewhere in the middle where you can do something that you enjoy, but it also makes you a decent amount of money. So I think that's kind of the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle there. And you might be thinking, well, I don't really care about enjoying what I'm doing. I just want to make a shit ton of money, right? I just want to make a shit ton of money. Or maybe you're on the other side where you're saying, you know, I just want to enjoy what I'm doing. I don't even care about money. I could give two fucks about money, right? The thing about that though is there's studies that show that if you make a certain amount of money, if you're making 75K, now this study came out a while ago, so you have to change that with inflation. It's probably more around 100K now. But if you're making about that, your the change in your emotional state isn't really affected anything beyond that. So if you're making 200, 300, 400, 500, a million, 2 million, your emotional state isn't actually that much different. And so if you're saying you just want to be rich and you don't care about what you're doing, the question is, what is going to carry you through once you get past that sort of upper limit? So after you get past 100K, what's going to be carrying you through? What's going to really push you through to really get to that next level? And I just think that it's a lot harder to do it that way. And then on the other side, if you're someone who doesn't think that money is really important, or you don't care about money and you just want to do what you enjoy, I would say, well, there's pretty solid evidence that shows that up to that point of around 100K, anywhere from, I don't know, 75K to 100K, you have to adjust it for inflation. I don't know what it would be, but within that point, you're actually experiencing a higher level of emotional, like just being in general. Because think about it, when you're broke and you can't pay your bills, that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of stress that's being put on you. That's a lot of health effects, negative health effects that you have to experience in a bad mental state that you're in. I think we could both agree that that point where you're making, enough to be happy and not really worry about money, but you're also doing something that you enjoy and that brings you fulfillment, is obviously a no-brainer, right? And so if we want to get to that point, we have to flip the mindset. We have to change our perspective on really making money in general. And for me, it took a long time and a lot of trial and error and research to understand this. And it's really that instead of chasing the money first and prioritizing the money as sort of your North Star. So, you're not going into and being like, I'm going to start this business because it's going to make me this amount of money, or I'm going to go do this career and get this degree because it pays this amount of money. Instead, what you do is you flip that on its head and you go, what am I intrinsically motivated to do in terms of what am I interested in and what am I curious about? Those two things are really the most important data point. And if you can figure that out, then you are almost guaranteed to be on the path of becoming successful. Because if you think about it, the things that you're interested in and curious about, you probably enjoy those things, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't do them. I mean, there's no reason you would be really interested in doing a thing if you hated it. It just doesn't make any sense. So we already have one half of the equation right there, which is something that you're interested in, at least for the moment, and you're curious about. So you enjoy doing that. The other great thing that I feel like not enough people talk about, when you flip this perspective and instead of chasing money, you chase your real, true interest and curiosity, is that you have an advantage. You have an extreme advantage. The first thing is you have the ability to kind of outlast your competitors. If you think about it, your competitors may have entered into your market, your niche, whatever, in the sort of mindset of, I'm here just to make money. In which case, they aren't going to be putting in the extra hours that you are in terms of studying, learning, experimenting, going out there and taking action. They're not going to be doing all of those extra things, most likely, because they're just here for money. So they're going to do the minimum. They're going to do the least amount they can do. Whereas you're going to be doing a lot of extra work, because for you, it isn't really work. It's just what you enjoy doing. So you may be reading about a particular topic, for 4 hours at night. Meanwhile, they're off doing who knows what, but they're not studying. They're not putting in that extra time. So it gives you such an edge. The other advantage is that probably more than 99% of the general population, because of the fact that this is something that you have spent some time researching and learning about. It's an interest and something you're curious about. And so I know for me, with my interests and curiosities, I know more than most other people do. And other people will ask me questions about them because I spend all that extra time learning about it. And it's the same thing with other people. There's a lot of people who may have some weird, obscure interest that you've never even heard of before. And you're like, what is that? I don't even know what that is, right? But they've spent all this time investing in learning about it. And so that gives you another edge. So there's two advantages right there. So this is why I think it's so important not to be the type of person who puts money above everything else, who's putting money as the priority over your true interest, because there's someone else out there who is willing to do what you're doing for free. Think about that. There's literally somebody else out there. You have a competitor in your space, and say it's in your career. You want to be a computer programmer, you want to be a YouTuber, you want to be a fucking Instagram model. I don't know, whatever you want to be. There's someone else out there who has that motivation and that interest to actually go all in on it and to spend extra time studying it just because they like it. Whereas you, if you're going in there, even if there's a demand and you're trying to fulfill that demand, the only reason you're there is for the money. You're not even there. You're not even there just because you like it. And so that person is willing to do shit for free and spend extra time studying and learning and implementing. And you're over here just trying to do the bare minimum. You're going to get dominated, completely dominated. They're going to completely blast past you because they're spending who knows how many extra hours every day, every week, every month, just constantly learning and implementing new strategies that you're not even anywhere near on the same playing field. So that's why I think it's so important not to go down this route of basically prioritizing money. I'm going to go after a market or a career or whatever it is that pays really well and I don't even like it. You don't have to absolutely love it, but you need to at least have enough of an interest where you're curious about it and you spend extra time figuring things out, studying. You want this to be more than just a full-time job, right? You're not just trying to do the bare minimum. You want this to be almost like a lifestyle for this. You live and breathe this. That's how you build amazing things and you become extremely successful. So hopefully the points that I brought up are actually strong enough to convince you that you shouldn't be chasing the money first, but rather you should be following what you're truly interested and curious about. So you may be thinking, okay, well, I'm interested in some really strange, like really weird type of niche where it's an obscure interest. I don't think there'd be many people who would be interested in that. Or society's telling you, or your parents or friends are telling you, yeah, your interest is not going to be able to actually create a full-time income for you. And I think that this is completely false. When you hear people say that this is impossible, it's not impossible. It's just they don't understand how it works. And they're ignorant and they are just blatantly coming out and basically telling you that you don't know what you're doing when it's actually they don't know what they're doing because we now live in the age of the internet. And so you may think you have an interest that's too weird or there's not enough people around you. And that may be true. But when you access the internet, okay, that's when basically all options and opportunities are available to you. And you can access this and leverage this to create a full time income for yourself doing pretty much anything you want. And really, it's kind of cool because the more abstract and weird and niche your interest is, it's actually really good because that gives you the opportunity to learn about and acquire specific knowledge. So, this term specific knowledge, if you don't know, there's an entrepreneur, Naval Ravikant, and he is, hopefully I said that right, Naval Ravikant, I think, Ravikant. He is an entrepreneur and he basically, he put out like this amazing tweet storm about creating wealth in the modern age. And one of the elements that he mentioned within that was specific knowledge. And essentially, what he's talking about when he's saying specific knowledge, the way that I understand it is by following your genuine curiosity and interest, you obtain and learn about things that other people don't know. Okay. And so when you have those niche understandings within your domain of your interest, you can then use that as a way to solve problems. And once you solve problems, you can connect with people on the internet and share your problems with them. And after a long enough time of doing this, you can essentially turn any interest you have into an income that's enough to provide for you and or your family. Like there isn't a single thing I can think of off the top of my head that you couldn't make six figures on the internet doing, right? Like if you wanted to make 100K and just live a nice above average life, maybe with like a small family and doing something that you enjoy, I can't think of a single interest that you wouldn't be able to do that with on the internet. I mean, if you can think of any, let me know down in the comments, but I can't think of a single one. And that's because there's at least a few thousand, 10,000, if not millions of people who share your interest around the entire world. So the last thing is that understand your interests and curiosity and things, they'll evolve over time. As you achieve your goals and as you move through life and discover new things, you're going to have new things you're interested in, right? Over time, you're not going to be, I'm not interested in the same things I was 5, 10 years ago. So you don't need to worry about that. What you do is right now in the moment, whatever's capturing your attention and your curiosity, that's what you go after. And then in the future, if that changes, well, guess what? You can start a new business, you can get a new career, you can study a new degree. It doesn't really matter. The point is that you get started now. So that's pretty much all I have to say on the topic. I know this is a long video, but I wanted to put this out there because I had struggled with this and it cost me many years. And hopefully, if you can take this information and you can apply it, well, then, hopefully that saves you a few years of trying to figure this shit out. So, yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Peace.